Now, Chad, you have a question for Mr. Hanneman.
Mr. Hanneman, we're all getting older, and the state's population as a whole is aging. What specifically would you do as governor to help the state prepare for what's described as a silver tsunami?
You know, once again, being the mayor of the city, I had a department called the Department of Community Services, headed by a very energetic director. And we really reached out to the seniors and to make sure that they would always feel forever young. So one of the things that I want to do is that those that want to continue to work and not necessarily retire at the age of 70 and so forth, I want to work with employers, the private businesses in our community, to ensure that they can be gainfully employed so that they can live the rest of their lives out in dignity. But at the same token, you also have seniors that are going to need help. Kupuna Care is a wonderful state program that needs to be supported. We also have to identify ways in which those who are caregivers for our seniors and the like, that they get the professional training from our hospitals to do that within the confines of their home. And then those who are in that gap group that need help because they can't afford to do it, then we've got to be very creative in identifying funding opportunities, insurance programs that will allow them to be taken care of and have a home over their, a roof over their head, and be able to live there with their fixed income, and make sure that we don't put any undue burden on them like trying to tax their pensions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hanneman. Rebuttal, Mr. Iona.
Well, it's interesting. We just had the senior fair this past weekend, The Good Life, and I had a great time with our seniors. In talking to our seniors, I think there are a few issues that they are concerned with. First and foremost, I think it's about security. We need to make sure that they're secure in many different ways, and not only financially, but also in regards to aging out at home. Many of our seniors want to age very gracefully at home. They don't want to go to an institution or a community home. They want to stay at home, and so I want to present a package in which we can assist them with that. I think the expansion of Medicaid and Medicare for Kupuna Care is absolutely necessary. I think that's something that the legislature, through the leadership of David here, balked on this past session, but I would be very supportive of that so that they can age, as I said, gracefully at home.
Thank you very much, Mr. Iona. Mr. Ige.
Yes, thank you. You know, it really is about aging gracefully at home. We have been, and I've been the biggest advocate for senior programs at the state capitol, along with my colleagues in the Kupuna caucus. We have been preparing for this silver tsunami for a number of years. I supported, and we increased the funding for Kupuna Care by more than doubling it over the last 3 years. It really is about providing families the support so that they can take care of their loved ones at home. Most importantly, we have been advocating for change in Medicaid and Medicare to ensure that keeping and taking care of a loved one at home would also be covered, and providing help, funding for home chore and home health services as well allows families to take care of their loved ones.
Thank you very much. And now we have Andrew with a question.
Mr. Ige, this is a story that KITV4 has been following very closely. 9 months after the massive fuel spill at Red Hill, there's still no cleanup. How strong of a position should the state take in keeping our drinking water safe from this facility, which has been deemed of national importance to the military?
You know, I think the state has to take a very strong position to protect the health and welfare of our community. That should be job one, in ensuring that our water is clean and pristine and drinkable for all of the citizens in the state of Hawaii. You know, we have to be proactive and aggressive with the federal government to ensure that we are not endangering the lives of our citizens. And most importantly, we need to take mitigating action to ensure that any future leaks can be detected. And more importantly, we can begin to transition to decrease the risk that our community is placed by these facilities.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hanneman.
Yeah. You know, I've had the experience of working with the Board of Water Supply, so I understand very clearly how important and how precious our water resources are. And nothing can be more important to ensure that contamination of that water supply is never done. And if someone is responsible for that, in this case here, it could be the federal government, then we need to be very aggressive to ensure that these kind of things doesn't happen again, but more importantly, assure our residents that we will be vigilant and at the plate. And I would work very closely with and collaboratively with our congressional delegation to ensure that this is a matter of great import, and we want the federal government to be fair about it, and once again to reassure our residents of a clean drinking water supply.
All right, thank you much. Thank you very much.
I don't think you'll get any argument in regards to the importance of making sure that our water tables are, are clean and that they're safe and that they're drinkable. I think in this situation, what we need to do first and foremost is obviously work together to make sure that we can resolve the problem. And then when it's all said and done, obviously we can look to see how this happened and make sure that it doesn't happen again. So it's really about collaboration. I believe, based on what I've seen and what I've heard reported, that all parties are working together as best as they can, and with the objective of making sure that we have a safe water table and that the problem is corrected.
Thank you very much, Mr. Iona. Well, now it is time for the candidates to ask each other questions. A reminder, the gentleman receiving the question will get 1 minute to answer, followed by a 45-second rebuttal by the person who asked the question. And we're going to start with David Ige. Mr. Ige.
So I can...
You can tell us who you're going to send your question over to.
Okay. I guess I would ask a question of Mr. Iona. Duke, you've said you've learned a lot from Governor Lingo, and you are a heartbeat away from being governor. The state budget is the most critical instrument of change for state government. There have only been 2 times in the history of the state of Hawaii that we failed to balance the budget, and we ended in deficit the last 2 years of the Lingo-Iona administration. How can the people trust you with taxpayer dollars when you couldn't balance the state's checkbook?
Well, first of all, David, thank you for the question, because first and foremost, it should be noted that my input in regards to many of the initiatives and programs with Governor Lingo was just that. It was about input, it was about learning, it was about listening. Ultimately, it was Governor Lingo who made the decisions in regards to budgets, to programs, and the accolades go to her, as well as the criticism. I always said that in regards to what it means to be LG. But in regards to balancing the budget, I do know this. I do know that in the last 4 years, when you were chair of the Ways and Means Committee, that we increased spending by over $1.2 billion, that we increased taxes by over $800 million, and more importantly, we're heading for a catastrophe in 2016 because we may not be able to balance the budget in 2016 because of the budget being the amount of spending that has been increased. And in regards to how you balance the budget by raising taxes, you're going to have to make a tough decision whether you're going to raise taxes or you're going to streamline the budget.
All right. Thank you very much. And Mr. Ige, you have 45 seconds.
Yes, the Lingo administration was very clear about their strategy to balance the budget. They stopped paying bills. They stopped paying bills for $300 million for Medicaid service providers. Then they withheld the public's tax refunds so that they did not receive them, and they received them several months later. Withholding payment from vendors or suppliers or the people of Hawaii are really not valid budget balancing methods. I rejected tax increases. I cut budget requests by $1 billion from the administration. I made tough decisions to balance the budget for the last 4 years.
Thank you very much. And now we have Mr. Hanneman asking a question.
I'd like to direct my question to Senator Ige. Senator, in December of 2009, you received the Stroudwater report that made it very clear, you as the Health Committee Chair, that the study concludes that incremental changes is unlikely to be sufficient to address our Hawaii hospitals' short and long-term demand challenges, unprecedented state budget deficits. Then in 2013, you had another choice opportunity to do something about it when a bill went to conference. And in that conference committee, you were the senior member of that conference committee. You were the co-chair of that conference committee, a critical public-private partnership bill that could have emerged to have led the way to a public-private partnership. And at this particular point in time, there were private hospitals in Hawaii that were very interested in seeing that bill pass. What happened, and why couldn't you exert your legislative experience and influence to have moved that bill forward?
Absolutely. I'm proud of my record as chair of the Health Committee and chair of the Ways and Means Committee. I did pass legislation that allowed public-private partnerships in the Hawaii State Hospital system more than 4 years ago. At that point in time, the nature and structure of a public-private partnership was unknown. this past session, and Mr. Hanneman, you obviously don't know the demands and responsibilities of the Chair of Ways and Means. I had more than 400 bills in conference committee, and clearly I cannot be driving every single one. It's about collaboration. It's about working with my colleagues and chairs in the House and Senate. I was definitely aware of all of the conversations and all of the options that we looked at to move the health system forward. Unfortunately, we could not come to agreement. But the basic premise of a public-private partnership is still currently in law, and that still is an option as we move forward to make the hospital system more sustainable.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hanneman. 45 seconds.
All I know, David, in that conference committee, that bill died. And you talk about your legislative prowess. You talk about the influence that you have in the legislature that enables you now to be running for governor. Nothing could have been more important than to ensure patient-centered care, especially for those residents on the neighbor islands who are very dependent on the state hospitals. And I believe it was a travesty that that bill died, especially when there were local private hospitals willing to come forward. And we've seen that with Queens Hospital over there in North Hawaii. We've seen that with the Hawaii Pacific, with Wilcox Hospital on Kauai. I believe now more than ever we've got to address this issue with strong leadership and not saying that, well, I couldn't get it through, I have other demands on my assignments and responsibilities in the legislature.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hanneman. Mr. Iona, you have a question now.
Senator Ige, we now constantly see in the news that the Hawaii State Hospital system is cutting services for patients and laying off workers because they are in a fiscal crisis. In the editorial page of today's Star Advertiser, Randy Pereira, the executive director of HGEA, is quoted as saying that it was HGEA that was responsible for the failure of legislation seeking to privatize our public hospitals, and that they are damn proud of it. Randy Pereira and the HGEA leaders endorsed you. Does this endorsement mean that you would allow our public hospitals to go bankrupt?
Thank you. Absolutely not. You know, I have spent more time working on our public hospitals than either of you. You know, I have worked through the budget. I've worked through the different, as chair of Health Committee, I've worked through the different transitions and different alternatives for restructuring our public hospitals. Yes, we do have a labor contract problem with the contracts as negotiated. As governor, I would negotiate separate contracts for those employees who work in our hospital system. It's very clear to me that the current contract applying to all state employees does not make sense for a 24/7 facility. I would note that the Lingo Iona administration did absolutely nothing to work through the contract, to make any contract changes so that the employees who work at the state hospital facilities would have an opportunity to be more productive and efficient.
All right. And Mr. Iona?
In response to that last comment by you, that's because the legislature handcuffed Governor Lingo in regards to her executive power. They restructured the whole administration of the Hawaii public hospitals. But you could maybe answer this question again, too. Why is it then that this past legislative session, the legislature cut the Hawaii State Hospital's budget by almost $50 million? You took it from about $150 million down to $102 million. I don't think that's working with the hospitals on an issue that has been with us for quite some time. And as Mufi pointed out, it's the safety net of our hospitals in the neighbor islands. It's something that's not only vital, it's essential to the health and well-being of our residents on the neighbor islands.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Iona. And it's time, gentlemen, that we take a short break. But coming up, Laura Yamada will be asking the candidates the questions from you, the viewer. We'll be back in 1 minute.